you ever wonder what you'd do if you were a cod for a day?
Well, I don't know what the life or day in the life of a cod is, so I would imagine I'd be quite limited in the things I could do compared to what me as a human am used to doing in a day.
You can't swim.
Can't even swim.
Well, no, as a human, you can't swim like a cod could.
Well, yeah, so my answer is probably going to be swim a bunch and probably try and eat some kind of sustenance. I think those are the two main things. Maybe mate if I'm lucky, but, you know.
If you were a cod, would you be carnivorous?
I don't know.
Am I stretching the limit of your cod knowledge?
Well, only one of us has read a book about cod.
I imagine that I'm one of many people who's read a book about cod.
Are there any carnivorous fish that aren't sharks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pike.
Are they the ones with the, like, long noses or something? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
They live in British rivers and eat not carp, they eat perch and eels.
Right.
And bugs, I imagine.
Well, the reason that we're talking about...
No, I'm resisting all structure.
We've got to have some, like, people are going to be like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, exactly, and they can just wonder.
And let them suffer, is what you're saying.
Yeah, they can
let
just be curious.
Suffer in their confusion.
Yeah, they can just be curious as to what's going on, and that will, like, propel them through this experience.
All right, so we're doing just what, like freeform jazz?
Yeah, baby,
Okay.
It's jazz.
So just whatever's off the dome, just coming straight off the dome.
I know exactly what's going to come off the dome for you.
But that's
it's going to be an intro that you're going to read off your computer.
Well, I don't have an intro for this type of episode. Because incidentally, this is not a normal type of Comic Literate episode.
And I thought the thing about COD would, like, tell everybody that was the case.
I mean, the last... well, at this point, they might just be like, oh, Jamie's doing the intro again.
It's a Codcast.
Codcast.
You know, it's jazz, baby.
That'll be once we get the paywall, and the Codcast will go behind the paywall. It's like, if you want to hear us talk about COD for an hour every week somehow, if we got 1 hour out of COD for a podcast, Codcast, that would be amazing. Codcast.
Codcast.
No, Codcast, because there's like the reversing of it's the flipping of the...
Yeah, but COD past makes it sound like you had this really secret past as a fish that you're not telling us all about.
I used to be a cod.
Like,
honey, I need to sit you down. The truth is,
I'm a cod.
I used to be a cod.
And then she looks at you and says, well, I'm a haddock.
And you go, cool.
Haddock is a subspecies of cod.
Yeah, well, all right. I mean, I assumed it was a fish, at the very least.
Yeah, it's like a chip shop classic, isn't it?
Is this the one time you've ever got to flaunt your knowledge of cod?
No.
In an air of false superiority.
Like, I read one book about cod, and now I'm just like, right,
I am the master of cod now.
You need to know.
If you like a pub quiz, it's like, and this week's special theme round is about cod. You'd be like, yes!
Imagine what I was like when they gave me keys to a prison.
I mean, something to do with cod?
I just took a bunch of fish in.
It reminds me of the joke about someone misheard lyrics of Miss Jackson by Outkast. And it was like, sorry, Miss Jackson, ooh, I am 4 eels. It was like 4 eels in a coat.
That's delicious.
Yeah, because it's the only way you can go with that joke. There's nowhere else. Can we only talk about fish or cod in this special episode of
the Codcast?
Well, it's technically, I mean, I'm just saying it's completely off the dome, but of
no,
Barely Literate
I'm resisting
episode.
Structure.
Okay, all right. So like, so we're going no structure at all in this Barely Literate episode of the Comic Literate podcast, hosted by soon-to-be known as Comic Stan Ryan and my co-host, and I haven't got an adjective, but Jamie. The Codfather, Jamie.
Oh, you did it.
That's one you're back now.
I'm leaving.
You don't like the Codfather as an adjective to describe someone? He's a bit of a Codfather, you know what I mean?
It was a rubbish chip shop.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, if there's a chip shop pun that hasn't been used, I would bet money that every possible
But there
fish
was
pun.
a specific chip shop in Norwich called the Codfather that I did
I actually didn't know that, so that's surprising. Whereabouts was that? This is the most impenetrable.
There was one on Angel Road, surely, or is that?
Might be. I don't know.
Or is that Chish and Phipps?
I know Chish and Phipps, but I don't know. There's one called Chish and Phipps, but I don't know I don't know the road name it's on. I know roughly where it is.
No, the Codfather. The Codfather, I'm pointing at Ryan really excitedly. The Codfather was a fish and chip shop in Manchester.
Okay, so that's why I don't know
Fallowfield,
about
when
it.
I lived there, that were like, they were the only chip shop on the delivery service. So you could get it like...
I mean, back in the day, I'm guessing, because now they all are. Right?
Yeah, this was like 2010, I think. Like, I used to physically go and walk to a chicken shop to get fast food.
They call you a big boss man.
Yeah, they call you boss man, and you give them £2.50 for chicken and chips.
Oh, that was a while ago.
Yeah,
man,
it was a
wasn't
long old time ago. It was up north as well.
Spare a shilling for a piece of chicken.
Have you got a guinea?
I rode my penny farthing to the chip shop and then dropped my chip from the great height that was my bicycle.
And they just like catapulted some chicken up to me, and then I staggered on home.
And then it knocked me off my bike. There you go. And then bang.
Manchester would be a really bad place to ride a penny farthing.
I think most places in this day and age, and even back when you're talking about the distant past of the late noughties, it'd all be bad for a penny farthing for obvious reasons.
Worst place to have a penny farthing.
Was the idea that they thought the bigger wheel would make it faster? Like, was that the theory? Or...
No. So, oh my God, it's boring.
I mean, if ever there was I'll try, right? You say it and I'll try and make it funny.
So, a penny farthing isn't chain driven. So the pedals...
It's wanker driven.
Yes.
Right.
The pedals are directly linked to the wheels. And so because of the way that gear ratios work, if the wheel was the size of a normal bike wheel, your legs would be moving incredibly fast to get enough revolutions in to propel you at a certain speed.
So I was kind of right.
So the wheel being massive means that
less pedaling.
A 1-to-1 ratio between the pedal and the wheel is much more easy on your legs because it doesn't have to go around as many times to get a full revolution.
Yeah.
That's why the penny farthing has a big wheel. It's essentially a massive unicycle with a rear wheel to balance it.
Did you know that there's a Spider-Man villain called Big Wheel?
Oh, is there?
And he's tell you what, do you want to guess what he is or what he looks like, what he's about?
So it's set in New York.
Yes.
He is an eccentric busker.
No.
I'll
let you continue.
He's an eccentric busker on Times Square who beats you with a penny farthing if you don't pay him for the photographs he takes of you.
No. Do you want another guess?
Big wheel. A big wheel in America is a trike.
Yeah, I've heard that before, yeah.
Yeah. Is he a toddler?
That's such a weird guy on a motorbike, 3-wheeler motorbike. It's like, oh, is that your big wheel? Like you're like a toddler. Like, of all the people who might have a gun and kill you, like surely that's one of those kind of people you don't want to be like, oh, look, your little big wheel.
Does he ride a 3-wheeled motorcycle?
No, he doesn't.
Go on then.
So it's a mechanical big wheel, and he's in the middle of it. And it's just a wheel, but it's big and it crushes things. And that's Big Wheel, yeah.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm looking it up.
Yeah. There's one other one. It's a good one. It technically is a Daredevil villain. And I think you'll get this one a little easier.
Ryan,
yep.
How have you managed to bring this Barely Literate podcast episode?
Oh, is that what it's called?
It's not about comic books. Directly back to comics.
Look, I started the podcast for a reason. This is what I'm about.
Big wheel. Yeah, okay, that's stupid, Ryan. I'm gonna try and get ahead of you. Daredevil silly villain.
Well, I could tell you the name of the one I'm talking about.
I want to see if Google knows.
Begins with an S.
Is it Stiltman?
It is Stiltman, yes.
Why? Is it because he's blind? And so it's like, it's quite easy to get on over.
The blind famously hate stilts. Is that what you're implying?
Well, if you were blind, would you want to be on stilts?
I think if I was blind, there's a lot of stuff I wouldn't want to do. And stilts will probably be low on the list of thinking about oh no, I can't do stilts anymore or whatever. Like, of all the things that blindness would hinder you at, the use of stilts would not be my concern.
Do you know, I bet at least once somebody has been in a doctor's office and their reaction to their diagnosis is, oh no, I can't use stilts anymore.
Yeah, one person, and the doctor was like, get out. I don't want to help you anymore.
The doctor was like, you know what? I'm not treating anyone from the travelling circus anymore.
Yeah.
This gig does not pay well enough.
You guys and Morris dancers are the people who I've refused to treat. I took an oath, but I draw a line.
Is that just because the doctor doesn't like racists?
Well, Morris dancers.
Oh.
Are Morris dancers famously racist?
No, it's a whole thing. So there's a whole like subset of Morris dancers who perform in blackface.
Okay.
But it's not murky water I'm just wading into for no reason.
I mean, to be honest, I'm not that concerned about insulting the Morris dancing community as a whole because...
What are they going to do?
Well, exactly. What are they going to dance at you? Shake bells? Like,
well, this is the thing. You hear them coming. They're never going to get the jump on you, are they?
Yeah, but also I feel like the sound of them approaching would be scary in itself. You just hear a jingling from like far off, and you're like, well, it's not Christmas, so... Oh, God.
So the blackface thing, it's to commemorate coal mining. It has to do with coal mining, and so it was a dance that they did yearly in certain like Morris circles in certain places. And they would paint their faces black to be coal miners.
Right.
But of course, as history has moved on, blackface has become a whole other fucking thing.
Yeah, I feel like if your goal is to honor the coal miners, do a different thing. Because it's not the only thing about
this
them.
Is it,
like,
yeah.
Get a pickaxe or a
dead budgie.
Or a canary.
Was it a canary?
Well, the phrase is canary in coal mine. I assume they could have used any small bird, but that is the phrase.
No, it has to be canary.
It has to be a canary.
If you take a budgerigar down a mine, everyone's going to look at you like you are proper weird.
No, it's just like, I couldn't afford a canary, lad, so I bought in a pigeon. And the pigeon just doesn't die because they're so resilient.
Yeah, absolutely.
And all the people are like, I feel funny. It's like, well, the pigeon's fine.
Turns out,
all the men died, and the pigeon just fucking ate their corpses.
Yeah, I was gonna say it ate them.
Yeah, but do a different thing. Wear a hat with a light on it.
Yeah, fucking A. Like,
this is the problem with like all these people are like, it's my heritage to honor my ancestors, even if they were being incredibly racist by today's standards. And it's like, your heritage was like, you have like literally infinite heritage, essentially, by our standard. But the one part that you need to honor in this day and age is like the Confederacy or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or your slave-owning ancestors or something. And it's like, do you really need to honor that part? Or is this you fighting against what you think is overly PC woke bollocks?
Absolutely.
You know? But again, if you're Morris dancers, who cares? Like,
you're irrelevant.
Yeah, you're already a joke. God forbid if I'm pissing off the few Morris dancers that are listening to the podcast, but also I don't care. So
if you are a Morris dancer that listens to the podcast, can you send us a sample of your bells so that we can put them in an episode?
Or
I just really want some audience engagement, Ryan. It's all I ever want from the podcast.
I mean, I'm
so lonely.
Absolutely piling in with fan mail that we're sorting through in preparation for eventually reading off, because we have so many listeners already.
But it's all fan mail for you and the cat.
Well, there's been a couple. There's like, that Jamie guy sounds alright. I think we got one of those in, didn't we?
Yeah, that was the one that was written in crayon, wasn't it?
He sounds like he knows his way around a cod.
You know, every time we come away from the podcast, it ends up being really cod heavy. I just want fish and chips.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's the human instinct, isn't it, to just to crave, especially think about any animal that is served up in some kind of food.
A horse.
I mean, after that Tesco scandal all those years ago,
the lasagnas were never the same.
Well, this was a thing. I had a friend who literally said when it came out and they took all the stuff off the shelves off, and including the lasagnas, and he was like, I just want the lasagna. They're really nice. I don't care about the horse.
Yeah.
Like, put more horse in if that's what it takes, if that's what makes them that way. Like, I'd rather have the choice.
Well, that happened when I was a uni student, and I distinctly remember eating quite a lot of the Tesco's lasagnas because they were pretty good. I like horse though.
I mean, everyone likes horse. It's whether you like eating horse was the question.
I like to eat horse.
Fair. I mean, some people do, don't they?
Yeah, horse is delicious.
There's a line in Hamilton where they're like, "We're so desperate we ate our horses."
Yeah,
and I'm guessing you heard that and you were like, like, was that desperate or was that just a delicacy?
it was. Yeah, no, I mean, it was kind of like, was that a stab at Lafayette and all the French jokes about Lafayette and Jefferson?
Jefferson was an American living in France, or was he French? I generally don't know.
Jefferson was from Virginia.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But he was busy getting high with the French.
Yeah. I know he was in France for a while.
Yeah, he was in France doing diplomatic work, which was mostly him drinking and whoring, I believe.
And then as soon as the war was done, he was like, "Oh, what? The war's done? Oh, I guess I'm back
the
now."
The war's done. Well, the part of the world that I own a big chunk of is profitable again.
Yeah. I mean,
realistically,
surely it must have been profitable beforehand, but did he just not own it, or
that bit of Virginia would have been pretty touched by the war?
Right.
So I imagine his land wouldn't have been as profitable during war times. No,
right. I had a look at
cost of doing business, isn't it?
Yeah, I had a look at the American map for the first time in a while because I'm seeing, and we're not going to get
Planning
into this
siege.
No, just me and an army of Morris dancers. They won't know what's coming. They'll be like, Jesus Christ.
They literally won't know what's coming.
What is that? What actually is that? But I was
those Brits in blackface. What the fuck is going on?
Good Lord. I was looking at the map because I was seeing all the, as I'm sure you have as well, there's all the stories of Florida and all the dumbass laws that are coming about there now, and how basically they're taking it back to the 50s as best they can, if not worse. And I had a look at the map because I was just like, if you're in Florida and you are affected by these laws, especially if you're LGBTQ...
How far do you have to go? How far do you have to travel to not be in Florida anymore?
If you're LGBTQ in Florida, I was kind of thought, like, how far do you need to, like, get out? Because, like, American states in general, unless you're a bunch of the small ones on the east, they are bigger than the UK. So I had to look to be like, how far do you have to get? I did not realize how the South, as known as the South, is all concentrated in that corner. It's not really the South, it's the bottom, it's the South.
The southeast, isn't it?
Southeast.
Southwest.
No, southwest is, the west coast is...
Florida's in the west.
No, it's the east. So it's the southwest is your California, Nevada, Texas, Arizona and Texas. And then Texas is obviously in the middle of the South.
I'm Googling a map, but I've used the most long-winded search term.
A map of the continental United States of America.
That's literally what I typed in. That is literally what I typed in. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's southeast, essentially.
I always think of Florida as being right next to Cali. But it is not. It's like literally directly due south of New York, isn't it?
Yep. Basically all on the east, essentially, yeah. So that's Texas, wild. You've got in the middle, and then east of Texas is the South. There's going to be Americans listening to this to be like, why are you talking about stuff we learned in the first grade or whenever? Like, this is the most basic stuff for them. But to us Europeans, we're like, oh, that state that I've heard of is next to that other state that I've heard. But yeah, it's weird that, from us, it's like every state that they learn about for us is a country. So I wouldn't know much about... I don't know that much about other European countries, really. I know roughly where they are, but for them, it's like, it's all the same country, and then they just do or do not know about the states. But the actual ordering of the states, you can see why Florida's almost essentially the core, because once you get past Florida, it's just water, it's just the sea. So it is like the core in the middle of all the deep south.
I think it's ironic, given the reputation that Florida has, that it does look like America's flaccid penis. Yeah. Just like hanging there, you know?
Yeah. A little. Flaccid for sure, because it's that shape and direction. Yeah.
I suppose if you're looking at the map from the other direction, suddenly Florida's very excited. But
we've spoken before about the English map and how
Yes.
anyone in England, especially who's like doesn't know where Norfolk is, and I always describe it as if you see England as a pig being rode by a man in a witch's hat.
Scotland being the witches.
Yeah. And Wales, pig's head. It's a side profile of a pig's head. And I don't see how I've said that to people, they're like, oh, is it? It's like, have you never seen that? Like, I cannot be the only one. And then if you look at the arse of the pig, that's Norfolk.
Absolutely.
And that's where we are. That's the best way to describe Norfolk.
And I'm looking at it now, and you are absolutely right. It is. It definitely looks like a pig's head.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a good way to describe to people, if you're not too familiar with geography, just point to where on the man or the pig where you are. If you're in the south of the UK, that's the man's feet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I suppose if you're in the southwest, like Devon, Cornwall.
That's the feet.
Yeah. And then, like, you know, Hastings, Canterbury, Brighton kind of area is like the rear legs.
I don't know what Ireland. What would that be a thing? Because it doesn't. It's so separate. I don't know what it would be, like a floating thing in front of the man with the pig.
It's the thing that the pig is chasing.
Well, if there was a little peninsula part, that would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Because then it would have looked a little bit like a hanging thing or something.
Yeah. I mean, the Isle of Arran and that little cluster of islands just off Western Scotland could almost be the rope that Ireland is hanging on.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Once you get into that, you get into like the star signs and the, you know, like they used to call that they used to call it the house because it looks like a house. It's like 3 stars, and you're
Orion's belt always gets me.
Well, Orion I get as a person, and the belt even actually makes more sense because in a person it does look like the belt area. But yeah, the bow is like what? The cart, I guess I can see a little bit.
Kind of get the Big Dipper.
It's just a big star, isn't it? It's just the Big Dipper. Is that a bright
the Big
star?
Dipper's
Is that
a frying pan?
Right. I might be thinking of the cart, but I don't know. The cart has like a little handle that goes kind of out and down a little bit.
Yeah, then there's the Big Dipper, which is like 4 stars, and it's across, down at 45 degrees, across again, and up at 45 degrees.
I think I'm going to have to look that one up to have a good idea. But it's that same basic thing of like, look at this. Look, we see this thing. It's like when someone points out a cloud, like that cloud looks like this. And it's like, you're the only one who sees that. And fair enough, because that's still valid. But
yeah, the Big Dipper is a really interesting, like star constellations are a really big kind of shared hallucination.
Yeah, that's the cart. I've known that's the cart.
No, that's the Big Dipper.
Oh, see, I know it's the cart or like the trolley or something.
Oh,
like
I always
that.
thought it was a frying pan.
Yeah, but again, this is exactly proving our point, isn't it? It's people could see different things in abstract. It's not even like personification. It's whatever that, but for inanimate objects. Big word.
What's the word? I don't know what you mean.
Well, personification is when you attribute human attributes to an inanimate object or even an animal, yeah, to a non-human thing. So what I'm saying is, wherever the version of that is where you are attributing anything to a completely random layout of nothing. So like stars or clouds or whatever. Like that cloud is shaped like a dick, and you're like, all right, Freud, thank you.
By the way, do you know the name for when you make an animal look like a human? It's a great one.
Is a lonely night in Norfolk.
Anthropomorphize is the word I'm looking for.
To be fair, I did know that word. Yeah,
it's such a great word. Like
anthropomorphic. Anthropomorphic describes like Animal Farm and an anthropomorphic tale. Would you say is that like it's a story where human attributes on the animals?
Yes.
Yeah.
Typically these days you would mostly use it for animals that are like a quadrupedal animal that you make bipedal and give a slightly human face to in a cartoon. You've anthropomorphized it.
Or just putting a hat on a dog.
Which is a great pastime.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got the hats and you've got a dog, then
why wouldn't you?
That's your day sorted.
Do you ever put a hat on your dog?
I have not yet. He's got a coat, a raincoat with a hood. He's not fond of it, but he'll...
Oh, do you have pictures?
Yeah, of course I do. But if it falls... I'll show you afterwards.
Oh.
but the coat does like fall over his eyes. So if it's like pissing down rain, it's just over his eyes. He's like, I can't see, but he just keeps trying to walk anyway. And I'm like, do not walk into the road or a wall. That's what I've been dealing with for the past half an hour.
So the cat is catting about.
As cats do, but she's also at an age where it's a bit more intense catting around than older cats.
She's a big absolutely. No, sorry. The story about your dog. I don't know if I'm allowed to say your dog's name or if you are that private.
For now we'll call him Dog, because that is his other name. So.
Dog
the dog.
Listening to Dog the dog, Ryan talk about Dog the dog's coat, almost wept. I don't know if it's just where I'm at in my life at the moment.
You're hormonal.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Yeah. Just real hormonal.
Yeah. And so we haven't got a structure for this, and it's good, but I think...
Can you hear Ryan squirming at the lack of structure?
Well, it's not the lack of structure as such.
I'm watching you struggle.
Well, this is the difference, is I think if I was to do anything, we would hear silence and not say anything for a while. Whereas when we have something we're talking about, we'll both be like, oh, this next idea about the book or the topic, you know? Whereas right now, it's like, if we were hanging out, it just like in a pub or something
would happen.
Some exterior thing would spark a new conversation, but we're just staring at each other over a table. So it's like like an interview process where someone like, okay, next question, moving on.
What you need to do now is talk about whatever you can think of for the next hour, sir. Is that okay?
I mean, give me a bloody topic, and depending on the topic, I can. We both can. We both have topics we could just run our mouths on for ages.
Oh yeah, no,
and we will do those. We'll do those as specialist Barely Literate topics. I think would be a good thing.
Yeah,
Barely Literate, but this time we're talking about Star Wars again, because we can always do that again. Or you can talk about COD again for an episode. that's for the Cod-based.
Or I want Codcast. Hashtag Codcast. Make it a thing.
All right, viewers vote Codcast or Cod-based. Because
I'm be Codcast.
But I feel that way about Cod-based because I like that it's the switching of the.
I think I like the fact that cast is still like a familiar factor there. Like a Cod-past could be anything, but you know exactly what a Codcast is going to be.
Cod-past, I think, but it's not like I've changed the cast to past for no reason, but the Cod and the pod have switched already, so it kind of makes sense that the other switch as well.
Oh no, I understand the internal logic of it.
Yeah,
but you're wrong.
Also, Codcast casting is a thing in fishing already.
Exactly. So it's a double pun layer.
But it might be more confusing because be like, oh, you're actually casting for cod, whereas Cod-past is like, do you mean podcast?
You don't fish for cod with a line and reel.
All right.
You trawl for cod.
You'll be trawling for cod in a minute.
I'm sorry. I just know about cod
Boy,
fishing.
You'll be trawling for cod if you don't stop talking about it.
I'm sorry that I know how you fish for cod. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's not, I wouldn't apologize for knowing it. I'd apologize for bringing it up so often. That's not like, oh, sorry, I knew the thing to say. It's like, it's not that you knew it. It's that you keep saying it. That's the problem.
Can't help it.
I mean, if I read a book on cod, and not that I ever would, but if I read a book on cod, I'd be like, well, I need to use this information somehow, so I guess I'll bring it up at every possible opportunity, just to make it worthwhile.
I've not brought it up at every opportunity.
It feels like it. It feels like if there was opportunities you thought, I could bring up cod now, but I won't. I was not privy to these at all.
Well, no, because I didn't mention it.
That's what I mean. So I don't know. There's not been every opportunity. From my perspective, it seems like every opportunity.
Okay.
Because one was too many. One was like, oh, he's taking every bloody opportunity he can take, can't he?
So what do you think the Barely Literate podcast should be?
Well, it's this, isn't it? It's this right here. And to be fair, we think we've seen a bit more of each other outside of the pod than we normally would. So I think we would normally have a bit more saved up. Like we would have seen topics during the week that we would then only touch on a podcast like this or the opening part of the normal podcast. So yeah, I think that's it. But this is basically it, isn't it? It's talking about whatever comes to mind. You opened some Pokemon cards recently, so that was the biggest thing to happen in your life for a while. But judging by your reaction.
Well, what can you explain for the listener what my reaction was?
You looked like your expression and mannerisms looked like a child had been told that they were getting a puppy. I think was the most
Really?
accurate. Yeah, like a, ooh, but you were like looking in it kind of thing. That's as close as I think I can appropriate.
Because I never get to perceive myself.
I mean, who does really?
Yeah, this is it. Oh God, that's a big topic, isn't it?
How is it you can only ever perceive yourself through other people's eyes and you'll never be correct?
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? Fucking
And
hell.
beauty's eye of the beholder and all that bollocks.
Yeah.
So that happens as well.
Yeah, I never get to perceive myself when I open cards.
You'll never look at the back of your own head.
Oh, don't tell me that.
Not without a mirror, but you'll never see it with like your bare eyes.
Yeah, well, you'll never see yourself with your bare eyes.
I mean, your face, because you'll look at your body and stuff.
Yeah.
You'll never see your own face with your...
I mean, I've gotten a bit chubby in my old age, so I can't see most of myself at this point with my own eyes. It's just stomach.
I mean, well, that's why they invented mirrors.
Well, so I can get underneath the rolls.
It was when America got to a certain obesity level, they were like, we need to invent mirrors now. Like, see, that's the level that you can go at Americans, because they're like, yeah, we know, we're a fat country. It's
Absolutely.
like, and then from the British side, we ain't that far behind. So
God, we're not.
we
We're
eat
probably
chips for dinner. So
We're probably one of the most obese countries.
I would go so far as to say, geographically at least, the most obese country in Europe. I would go out on a limb.
It's us or the Germans.
And the Germans aren't that fat, to be fair. I think we have more...
No, they're not, are they?
I reckon we have more sugar in our diet in this country because of being a more Western country. Europe doesn't fuck with sugar as much. They obviously get like pastries and stuff, but I mean, like, they don't fuck with sugar like we put it, like Western countries, we put it in every food. Like,
well, it's in a lot of products that we buy that are kind of pseudo-American, isn't it?
exactly.
And I feel like most Europeans, because they have this really rich food heritage, kind of shun American food a little bit. I don't know that Europeans are as horny for American sweet shops as we are in Britain, but they are popping up fucking everywhere here. We want them.
Well, the funny thing about those is they probably have a lot of sugar. They probably have more sugar in them than normal sweets and stuff. But American chocolate is taste-wise less sweet than British, and I would say by extension, European chocolate.
Yeah, very much so.
German chocolate, especially, and Belgian chocolate
And
is a
Swiss
thing.
chocolate.
Exactly. That's all much sweeter. But I reckon, I might be wrong about this, but I reckon the American chocolate, tasting sweeter, probably still has more sugar in it somehow.
Yeah. The thing with Belgian and German chocolate is that it's less one note than British chocolate.
Right.
Like Belgian chocolate is this beautifully complex thing. It's not just sweet, is it? It's like it's rich and it's unctuous and it's creamy and it's.
You taste more of the cocoa-ness, which is it almost ventures into savoury, like the taste
Did you
flavour.
know that in America, Cadbury's chocolate isn't called chocolate?
Well, this is the thing, is it's a different classification because of the taste, isn't it?
No. So for something to be called chocolate in America, the only fat in it can be cocoa butter.
Right.
So for you to be able to call something chocolate in America, it can only have cocoa butter as its fat source. And so Cadbury's chocolate doesn't qualify. Neither does Hershey's. Hershey's isn't technically...
Hershey's isn't chocolate in America either.
No, they're candy bars.
That's crazy. Well, so what is chocolate to them? They even have chocolate.
They do, but it's rare. It's because
That's weird.
Because making chocolate with the only fat source being cocoa butter is a relatively expensive way to do it.
It's also quite an arbitrary rule.
Yeah,
Like-
fucking dumb. But American food rules are always fucking dumb.
It's not even
Kinder eggs.
It's not even
Kinder eggs.
So Kinder eggs are banned for some reason.
Yeah, so some bloke many years ago put poison in somebody's food to kill them. And instead of just like writing it off as one of many murders that occurred in America that day, because they fucking love to murder each other.
I was going to say, unless it's committed with a gun, then it's a big deal.
Yeah, well, this is it, isn't it? Yeah. They made a law that you can't put anything that isn't food inside a food product.
Right.
And so because with a Kinder Egg, the toy is inside
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
they are banned in
crazy.
America. Get them in Canada, banned in America.
That's crazy. Same with poutine as well. Cheese curds for sort of like the bacteria, the potential bacteria spread.
Yeah,
of
I
cheese curd.
know.
That is crazy.
Considering had poutine.
Yeah, it's great. They got places all over England.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, because chips, cheese, and gravy
Yeah.
is a really common thing up north.
The only difference is the cheese curd specifically.
And that's what makes poutine.
Yes.
It's that almost halloumi-ish.
Yeah.
Not quite halloumi,
Not as salty as halloumi.
Yeah, do you know, the closest thing that I've ever found to it, because you can't get cheese curds in British supermarkets to make poutine.
No.
The closest thing I've ever found, it's Indian...
Paneer?
Paneer.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's the name I'm looking for. Paneer makes really good chip, cheese, and gravy because it doesn't melt.
You could say it makes a good Indian twist on poutine.
Yeah. Like a poutine made with like British chip shop gravy, big chunky British chip shop chips as opposed to fries, and paneer, pretty fucking fit.
Well, what's crazy about American food is you would think it's so lawless, like Wild West style, with how much they get away with. Like it is just, for the most part, is like put as many artificial preservatives and chemicals and everything else you want in there. And it's not to say those are uniformly good or bad, but specifically is there should be some rules about how much can go in and stuff. Like chlorine in chicken is a big thing that we have to deal with now we're out of the EU.
Yeah, chlorinated chicken.
Because 51% of the country are fucking idiots. And that's probably true that's probably a minimum for most countries, really. But probably good argument why we shouldn't have had a vote like that in the first place.
I know. It's stupid.
But yeah, the chocolate debate as well. It was so weird trying American chocolate, or what I thought was chocolate. Probably didn't even say on the packet. In hindsight, but it was just such a weird experience of like, oh, is this gone off, or is this not as good?
Was it the BE?
It's probably Hershey's or something.
So, I really like American candy bars, but they have a sickly sour taste to them, don't they? Like almost a bit vomity.
I think we have something similar here. It's Kinnerton chocolate. That's kind of like that.
Yes. And it is a chemical that is used to preserve the cocoa butter as it transports, or was used back in the day, which is also present in Parmesan cheese and vomit.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. So it's a chemical specifically.
Yeah, it's literally an additive that they put in the stuff. And it was used to preserve the cocoa butter on very long journeys across the continental United States before transport got better.
Yeah.
And it's become such a prominent feature in American candy bars that they just still put it in because they're used to the taste. Like that's what a Hershey's Kiss tastes like, right? And I quite like it, but I was in America with my partner and she found it fucking vile. She was watching me eat this shit. There was a particular brand, it was in a yellow packet and they had tiny little bars in a big packet, and my mouth is watering just thinking about the cheesy chocolate.
Yeah.
Like I would literally call it cheesy chocolate. I really liked it.
That's, of the two things that apparently should never go together. I mean, the only other one being chalk and cheese.
Yeah, absolutely.
Apparently one was considered the complete opposite of the other.
I've never understood it because I've eaten some pretty chalky cheese.
I mean, in one way, they're not similar at all. In one way, you could describe them as the opposite ends of spectrums of one another. But in another way, I feel like there's other things that would also be that to both of those. I don't think they're the only opposites.
The only spectrum that chalk and cheese are the exact opposite ends on is the spectrum of chalk to cheese.
Where on the chalk to cheese spectrum do you find yourself?
Yeah, because this is the thing. Like, you can make a spectrum of any two things and make them polar opposites in the regard that they are at the opposite end of that spectrum. But I don't think chalk and cheese, except for the fact that one of them is a foodstuff and the other isn't. But even then, we eat calcium carbonate if we have indigestion.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's what I mean. Is they're so different, but there's a lot of other things that are different to both of those as well. So it doesn't really hold up.
What do you think would be the best chalk and cheese replacement as an expression?
So if it's like chalk and cheese, so it's got to mean complete opposites of each other.
Yeah.
But also opposites tend to be within the same group because that's why they're opposites. So opposite up is down. They're both directions. Opposite of black is white. They're both colors. They're just in that color spectrum. So with chalk and cheese, at least you can be like, they're not even in the same things, like the same groupings almost. So it kind of makes sense in that regard. In terms of a scale, well, as you said earlier about the chalk to cheese scale, which is pretty much binary one or the other, it did remind me of last week's episode, and I think the scale of the Wozniak to Jobs. That's a great
the
opposite.
Wozniak Jobs problem. Yeah, no, I enjoyed that. The ball felt good coming out of my hand on that one. Like we were having a good moment there, weren't we?
Because then it would be the scale of how much were you good at something, but also just a normal person with normal common sense,
or Steve Jobs,
or a genius in specific regards. And I don't even mean computing. I mean like marketing and PR.
Isn't
and that
he
kind
dead
of
now?
Yeah, he's dead. He died from pancreatic cancer, I think. I know it's a cancer. I think it was pancreatic.
Did his family survive him?
I think he's got family, yeah.
If you're a member of Steve Jobs' family, I'm sorry that I was mean about him last week. I didn't even know he was dead. I apologise.
I will say, if there is family listening, don't take it to heart and maybe don't listen to this podcast because we're not kind on any rich and powerful people, alive or dead.
Unless it's Alan Moore.
God, imagine when he dies. We're going to be absolutely distraught. We're going to have nothing left.
Well, as long as he's been on the podcast, I don't care. As long as he's come and done his episode.
And then afterwards, we just need to buy a Ouija board.
The ghost of Alan Moore. The ghost of Alan Moore comes back to tell us that they're not allowed to fuck with Watchmen.
How do you summon him? I quite like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen film. Like, you bloody what? I think he would come back as a actual Force ghost, but it would be Northamptonshire wizardry ghost. So not Star Wars Force, but yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, he'd come back in a Notts County.
Notts County?
Notts County.
I have no idea what that is.
I know he's from Northampton, isn't he?
Well, we think so. It said so at the beginning of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Notts County is a football team from Nottingham.
Okay, fair enough. I would not know that at all.
You're hip to Nottingham and it's slang. They often refer to themselves as being from Notts.
Wow.
Like that's an expression that's used for Nottingham a lot.
To be fair, well, I say if you're from Norfolk, we refer to ourselves as Norfolkians, so...
Yeah, I'm quite a proud Norfolkian.
There is a good joke by a duo based in Norfolk, I believe, called the Nimmo Twins. So I'm able to credit this joke this time.
I know the joke.
And it's, well, they've got quite a bit of Norfolk-based humour, which is really only funny to people if you're from Norfolk.
From Norfolk or Suffolk.
Or Suffolk, yeah, because we boo Suffolk. But one of their bits was quite good. It was about how Norwich was trying to win the Cultural City of the Year award to basically get more tourism to the city. So as part of the campaign for it, they were trying to come up with a slogan that they would hang on everything. It's like, how do we get across how magical and culturally significant that this city really is? So they've settled on one that they felt really embodied their, not only the majesticness of Norwich, but also their chances of winning the competition. And it was Norfolk Enchants. And if you know the accent, you know why that's funny.
I was in a pub quiz team.
Norfolk Enchants?
Norfolk and good.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I was at a pub quiz at one point, and it was first time going with the group I was with, and guy comes over, first time there, so the guy comes over, he goes like, hey, it's first time here, just so you know, it's adults and kids, so just be aware of that when you're putting in your team name and the little app thing. And he goes, and I go, oh, I guess no quiz in my face then, so we can't use that, so I guess we'll pick something else. And we picked a different name. And then as the guy starts the thing, he's on this microphone, and he's making a bit of a show of it. And he's like, ladies and gentlemen, be prepared to have your ears penetrated and your mind impregnated. And I was like, hang on, what?
Quiz on my face would have been fine.
We're putting the team name now, and you start all this. What the hell? It was just such a... I'm sorry, I thought we couldn't go that level, or is that just we can't, but you can because you're the host? Like,
You have a microphone.
absolutely ridiculous. So now that we have microphones, I will say almost anything. I'll at least say the quiz name, Quiz in My Face, because I thought it was a good one.
I mean, at some point last week, you scolded me for naming one of our high school teachers, so you won't say anything.
Well, this is why I corrected myself mid-sentence, say almost anything.
Now we're in the Barely Literate podcast. Are we allowed to complain about our old school teachers?
I feel like regardless of the level of literacy, regardless of the level of literacy, the laws of like libel and slander or whatever probably still apply somewhat.
I mean, I imagine he might be dead.
Maybe. But then, like you were just appealing to the family of Steve Jobs. What about the family of an ex-high school teacher come to find us?
I mean, the particular teacher we were talking about, I can't imagine him having a family.
Well, we take the risk, don't we? Look him up. It's like, look up the obituary. It says, survived by 0 next of kin or no family. It'd be like, right, we say what we want about
right,
now.
We're ready. Let's go. Let's do this thing. What are we even on a tangent from? We were talking about
the whole episode's a tangent. That's what we're doing.
We were talking about something a minute ago though, and we've gone on like 3 tangents.
We were talking about something almost an hour ago when we started. So that's that's the point of the episode. It's all tangent.
We're just
Mr. Come on, lack of structure, dude. Like let's just go with the flow. There's like, oh, hang on, we were just talking about something a minute earlier. That's the whole hour.
Well, I want the amount of structure that I want, Ryan.
You're one of those libertarians who's like, I don't want no rules. It's like, what about protecting your stuff? Okay, I want some rules, but mostly none. That's the mindset.
Have you ever been intrigued to go on holiday to Somalia just to see what a country with literally no rules actually looks like?
I'd be willing to go to see what like modern day pirates look like.
I know.
It's
I'm
crazy.
The captain now.
Did he know he was creating an all-timer meme when he said that line?
It's like top tier meme, isn't it?
And you can never guess what's going to become a meme all of a sudden. Especially things will be out for a while and then get memeified.
Yeah.
And it just takes like one person to use it in just the right way, and everyone goes, "Oh, that's brilliant. We'll use that from now on."
There's one that you use a lot that I really enjoy, and I don't have a fucking scoob where it's from.
Is it the noise?
It's slurp noise. Yeah. You use it in GIF form a lot.
I think the guy's name is Michael Rosenbaum or Rosenberg.
Right,
and he's a British guy, and I think I don't know what his actual thing is. I think he might be a poet or a storyteller, but he does it all like spoken.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's someone took that point and that got memed.
Yeah.
And there's a video of him in person somewhere, and people are like waiting for him to say something. And you could tell someone's like just started filming knowing he's about to say something. He goes, noise. And everyone goes, ah! It's also similar to Greg.
So he's a bit of a legend as well.
Yeah, he's gone along with it. Yeah, I think like people looked at if ever anyone was like, I'm a mildly known celebrity, like a mid-tier celebrity, but I've suddenly achieved a high amount of fame in this one specific area. Are people making fun of me? I think if they're smart or if they look into a bit, they would look to the Rick Astley. Follow his footsteps, because he was one of the first. Like he was like
huge.
This thing has become bigger than anything else I've done, and I don't know if it's serious or sincere or not. And he had to kind of get into the weeds of it to get to the core of like, it is a bit of fun, but it is done with love and respect. Like,
do you know what? It's what you make of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if you choose to be offended by it, then it becomes incredibly hurtful. If you do what Rick Astley has done and just embrace it, it's given his career a whole second lease of life, hasn't it?
And he posts like new music and stuff on Facebook, on Reddit, where big one part of it started. And it's just him. It's Rick Astley as himself. And he's like, "Hey Reddit, here's my cover of Everlong by Foo Fighters or something." Yeah. And they're like, "Awesome, like really cool, like great."
Yeah, well done, Rick.
There was a great moment where he was doing an AMA. And a lot of the AMA was just like how you dealt with the fame and stuff, and what did you think of this? Is where I kind of saw all this stuff. He would explain like, "Oh, I wasn't sure about it before.
Yeah,
there was a bit of time where I might have been a bit offended by it because I misconstrued it, and then I now I'm at a point where I realize people have been nice about it. That's the main thing. People are like, "Oi, Rick Astley, do that song." Like, they weren't like that. They were just like, "Oh my god, it's Rick Astley. We love that song that you do that's been memed everywhere."
Yeah.
And then in the AMA, someone was like, "Hey, there's this article here about like memification of stuff. Like, can you tell me what you think?" It's like, "Yeah, sure." Rick
rolling,
and Rick Astley got Rick rolled.
Oh, that's so good.
I think that's the moment he must have understood. Oh, this is what it's like. On this side,
it's being rickrolled is the worst and best feeling, because you click on the link and then you realize that you've been rickrolled and somebody's got you. But then you're listening to Never Gonna Give You Up, which is a pop banger.
It's a great song.
Like, Never Gonna Give You Up. It's a brilliant song.
It's our karaoke song.
It's one of our karaoke songs.
The funny thing about it is that it kind of got ruined a bit by YouTube ads, because if you click the link, it will take you to the ad and you see the song that's meant to be playing. So you go, "Oh, I'll just if I don't fancy listening right now, I'm just going to turn it off and not technically get rickrolled."
And this is the problem. It would artistically and for the memes, it would be the right decision for Rick Astley to turn off pre-rolls.
Yeah,
on the official Vivo version of Never Gonna Give You Up,
if he has that even control.
But that must be putting his kids through uni.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Views. Or his managers, or some, we hope that he has a direct feed to the money that's being generated from it. We'd hope. That must be one of the most played songs on that basis alone. If they count that as a view, that must be one of the most played songs of all time. I
mean, he has a job, doesn't he, Rick Astley?
No, he married a rich heiress. Yeah. He married like a rich, like, she's like,
he's on
really
radio.
Wealthy.
He
does stuff, but he's not doing anything for money.
Well, no, he has a radio show.
Yeah.
He has a regular radio show up north.
And what I'm saying is, if he gets paid for it, that's money that's just going thrown onto the pile. Like, he's not like doing anything for money. He gets paid for the things that he just happens to enjoy doing. I think is the better way to phrase it.
Yeah.
That's why he didn't do anything for a long time.
Yeah.
After that,
he just married into money.
Yeah, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm great," and by all accounts, apparently he's going well. So good for him.
Do you know the conspiracy around Rick Astley?
Oh, geez, no, I didn't even know there was one.
Oh my god, right. So Rick Astley and another pop star,
Paul McCartney, Avril Lavigne.
No, keep going while I Google it, because you might actually get it right.
God, I know pop stars, but I don't know them. If that makes sense. I don't think about them often enough to recall their names.
Kylie Minogue.
Okay.
Kylie Minogue and Rick Astley sound suspiciously similar.
Do they?
Yeah. When you speed up Rick Astley, you get Kylie Minogue.
Right.
When you slow Kylie Minogue down, you get Rick Astley.
Right.
And so there is a conspiracy that Rick Astley could never actually sing, and that he was a manufactured pop star, and that they recorded Kylie Minogue singing really fast, and then slowed it down to make Rick Astley's music, and that it's actually just Kylie Minogue slowed down.
Yeah, the problem with that is, I mean, as soon as you see him live and he doesn't do it exactly the same way a time, then you know it's bollocks. Also, it's just one of those things that, like, I imagine that's one of those conspiracy theories that people are like, I've noticed a thing and I'm now playing along with it kind of thing. But there's also the element of, like, what are the odds that two people would sound the similar if you speed up or slow down their voices? Like, well, considering how many singers there are, famous singers there are, two of them were bound to sound like each other.
I suppose
eventually.
I think the thing that really triggered it is that they were both around making music at the same time for the same label.
Yeah.
And so it kind of, but no, yeah, if you go online and search Rick Astley sped up, he does sound exactly like, it's uncanny.
Yeah, and I think that's coincidence, really. I think because it just
don't ruin it, right? It's a fun conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Normally they're not fun. This is a fun one.
And Elvis died and was replaced by someone, and then Paul McCartney died and was replaced by someone, and Avril Lavigne died and was replaced by someone. That's normally the conspiracy.
You get bonus points if you can tell me who everyone thinks replaced Paul McCartney.
A Paul McCartney lookalike. That's what I knew.
What's his name?
I don't know. Paul B. Cartney?
No.
Paul.
Billy Shears.
Oh, right. Billy Shields, isn't it?
Billy Shears.
Is it Shears or Shields?
Billy Shears.
I thought it was Shields.
One and only Billy Shears.
Yeah, I thought.
Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band.
Are the lyrics really not Shields? Because I've always.
I'm so sure it's Billy Shears. 1 minute.
It might be. It sounds like Shears, but for some reason I always knew it was Shields. And I think I got that from the Beatles Rock Band game where they had the lyrics at the bottom, but I might be wrong.
No, Billy Shears.
Okay, fair enough. I know what I got. It's one of those Mandela effect things where I just had Shields for some reason.
Yeah, no, it's Shears.
And that's the clue to,
Yeah, that was the clue, and everyone was like, well, it must be the one and only Billy Shears that replaced him.
But as they're introducing, that's Ringo who starts singing, so that's immediately bollocks.
Yeah, no, of course.
Of course.
The whole Fall thing was just so much bullshit, layered upon bullshit.
Was there a point to that, or was it literally just them having a laugh on the album cover? Because it's the cover of Sgt. Pepper's with the three of them in black, like crying, like that's where the conspiracy came from.
Well, no. So,
or was that referencing the existing conspiracy?
So the Sgt. Pepper's cover, there is a coffin in the shape of a bass guitar.
Right.
That was to commemorate the Beatles' first bassist who died.
Right. But there's also the other three in black crying.
Oh yeah. So, but that's because they have images of a bunch of famous people on the Sgt. Pepper's cover.
Yeah.
And so it's just, they're just bad illustrations of the Beatles in their original Beatles suit.
Right. But they also look intentionally sad. Like, it looks like it's referencing. Yeah, well, that's where I heard about the conspiracy.
1 minute.
Jamie is, for the first time ever, with purpose, flicking through a stack of records. Well, not a stack of records, a shelf of vinyl records, like a hipster's wet dream that this has ever been actually required.
Yeah, like, how often is it that you're talking about something?
It's like someone having a PhD in philosophy and finally using it in an event.
I hope that made it onto the microphone, because that's a fun bit of the podcast.
It definitely wouldn't have.
You think?
No, not well enough. Because even if I turn it up compared to us, it still wouldn't.
I mean, I think it's kind of funny that me just like disappearing into the corner of the room.
Well, I narrate a bit of it. I told them what you were doing while you were doing it. But we've established that it is the four Beatles in a secondary position of the album cover, not minus Paul, like I incorrectly thought. I Mandela'd myself into thinking it was another thing. It's all with conspiracy theories. I'm like, I heard something 10 years ago and maybe I'm recalling it wrong now, kind of thing. Also, music conspiracies, it's all bollocks anyway. So
I love them. I live for them. I don't live for them, but they're fun.
The only one I like, and it's not even a proper conspiracy, is in the film Bubba Hotep with Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
That he was Elvis, and Elvis swapped with a impersonator because he didn't want to be famous anymore.
Yeah.
And the impersonator, as soon as he became Elvis, became excessive drinking and drugs and eating and died. And that makes sense because Elvis seemed to be like healthy and normal at one point, and then just switched and became
Elvis
this really...
was a black belt in karate.
Yeah, exactly.
Where the hips come from.
It's also when he met fucking I think it was Nixon? No. Or Reagan. I think it was Nixon.
One of them really liked him.
I think it was Nixon who he got like a special like FBI honorary agent thing. And he was like, yeah, because I know karate. Ha! Like that kind of thing. Judo chop. Because there was like a film about that meeting or something.
Yeah.
So there's something about there. But
whichever president met Elvis really liked him, didn't they?
I think it was Nixon. Because was it Nixon? 50s.
Oh, mate.
Oh, no, Nixon was probably 80s. Oh, who would that have been?
Surely Reagan was the 80s.
Oh, Reagan was 80s.
Because Thatcher and Reagan liked each other,
yeah, so Nixon was only a bit earlier. Nixon was 70s or early 70s at the very least.
Would have been Eisenhower, would it?
Don't think so. I don't think Eisenhower was that cool.
Nixon. Yeah, you were so right.
Oh,
Nixon.
Fantastic.
Nixon in 1970.
Well, it was something.
Yeah, there's a film called Elvis Meets Nixon.
Yep, I remember seeing the trailer for that.
What the fuck? 1997?
Not quite Frost Nixon. like actual important story or whatever. But
Oh, God. Alan Arkush, you absolute legend.
well, I think that's almost basically got us close to an hour, basically.
Oh, mate, we should... this is jazz, baby. I'm having fun.
This is jazz, but jazz also has to end sometimes. Jazz, unlike other forms of music, does not continuously go on. Jazz is probably the most likely to just go on.
So, thank you for listening to the inaugural episode.
Inaugural? The first?
Yeah.
I generally don't know. I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of the Barely Literate podcast.
Is that where inauguration? Like
Yeah.
your first day as president? Is that
Yeah.
what it is? Right.
You were inaugurated.
Fair enough. Like I established last week, I use words without knowing what they mean.
Yeah, inaugural is just like the first.
Fair. Okay.
There's like a ceremonial element to it, but it's the first.
It's like when I first heard second from last.
Penultimate.
And I was like, why do we need a word for that?
Do you know what the one before the second to last is?
Trinultimate.
It's the antepenultimate.
Okay. And the one before that is the pre-antenatal penultimate.
Antenatal?
Yeah.
Jesus.
The pre-antenatal penultimate.
No, it's not antenatal.
Okay.
Just antepenultimate.
No, but the one before the antepenultimate.
Why have you put natal in there? Natal is about babies.
I've established I use words without knowing what they mean.
Because do you know what antenatal is?
Yes, it's babies and stuff. Yeah. That's the joke.
Antenatal penultimate.
Yeah. And then pre-antenatal penultimate.
Makes my day.
And then it's ultimate penultimate.
And the ultimate penultimate.
Yeah.
So ultimate penultimate is the thing that is the best at being the second from last.
Wow.
Surely.
I have no
That's
idea
it would be, isn't
yeah,
it?
I have no idea what context you could possibly use that in, but sure.
We've coined it.
Yeah. If there's ever something that's the best at being second to last, we've got it.
So if you've been affected by any of the issues in this episode of the Barely Literate podcast,
And how could you not?
you can send it. Look, right? You love structure. Yeah?
Viewing, tunnel visioning, watching you.
Then you've been affected by any of the issues in this episode of the Barely Literate podcast. You can send us an email at comicliterate@gmail.com.
Yep.
And if this has made you want to learn about comic books, you can go and listen to a Comic Literate episode.
Which are a bit more structured, shall we say.
Yeah, and do you know what we've learned today, Ryan? Structure is good.
Structure has its place. Tangents also have their place.
Oh, yeah.
But just like with seasonings, if you have too much of one of the other, then you can ruin a good thing.
Is that what we've done here?
That's
today?
the message that we're leaving off it today. But also, this is going to be occasionally we are going to do what I was best describe after that metaphor as being a rather spicier episode where it's just an hour of tangents, or we'll have a topic that doesn't quite fit in the Comic Literate. So maybe we'll talk about a TV show or film, or maybe we might have a topic, or we might just go off on tangents for an hour. We're hoping that if one point in the future this might be a separate podcast to the Comic Literate podcast. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But before then, it's just going to be occasionally a nice break.
Yeah, it's a fun thing.
A nice break in the norm.
So thank you.
Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna run around and desert you.
Copyright strike.
We're on podcast fire. It's like the Wild West out here. No one cares. All right. Goodbye.